Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of season 4 of the Ride Your Life podcast. And fun fact, this is the 60th episode of the ROYL Podcast. And man, it's been a fun ride of our lives. No pun intended there, but this has been it's been a fun ride. Just all the things we got to do with the podcast, from even season 1, which again was our learning stage and getting our feet wet with the podcast, to where we are now, to where you can watch our podcasts over on YouTube, which is also a plug right now. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can watch this episode and all of season 4, Lord willing, on YouTube with our guests. And one of the main reasons I decided to do the video route is actually sparked by this episode, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But I wanted to ultimately bring you all in to the virtual studio and to meet all these guests. And next week we'll talk more about this season, what it has in store. But this season we are focusing on stories and how God can use our stories, our testimonies, for His glory. So that others might come to know Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. But I wanted you to be with the conversation, be in the conversation, as I talk to these guests, and just to hear their heart for the Lord and just what they're doing for the Lord. I want you to be there. So I thought it would be neat to incorporate video this season. We'll see how the future holds, but I wanted to give it a shot. We're gonna do this video thing this season, and bring you along for the ride of our life. And with that being said, every good circus, every good fair amusement park has a cast of characters, even maybe a clown. And our guest today, some say he is a clown, but quite frankly, he is a clown. And we're so excited to have Bullseye the Clown with us today in the virtual studio. And in this episode, we'll get to know Bullseye and get to know his ministry, Clowns on a Mission. And what that is first and foremost, Bullseye is a humanitarian clown, which means he, with his mission, Clowns on a Mission, go around the world and first and foremost promote positivity. He is an anti-bullying clown, so he does school programs and things like that. But ultimately, he goes around the world and he shines the light of Jesus and brings hope to those who feel hopeless. They go around providing food, clothes, shelter, all these things for people around the world that need it, but ultimately give them the hope and love of Jesus Christ through the message of the gospel, that Jesus Christ came to this earth, died on the cross for their sins, was buried, and rose again, so that they could have eternal life with Him in heaven. So that's what he does, and it's awesome, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear this interview today. And also, before there was a Bullseye, he, as a teenager, worked at a little amusement park called Cedar Point. You may or may not have heard of that park. I don't know. But he worked there as a teenager, and he talks about his time there as a game attendant. So we'll talk about that and so much more in this week's episode of the Ride Your Life podcast. Welcome, everybody, to season 4. And it's going to be a fun one. So with that being said, go ahead. You don't want to miss a second. Buckle up, because here we go. Welcome to this week's main segment of the Ride Your Life podcast. This week, we have a very unique guest in the virtual studio, one that we've never had before. And I'm not clowning around tonight, but I have the one, the only, Bullseye the Clown. How you doing, Bullseye?
Yay! I'm doing great. I'm always wonderful whenever I find out I'm the first and only clown people have had on their show. So.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on, just to get to know you a little bit about your who you are and just your ministry. So without further ado, let's get to know you a little bit. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Just
Well, my name is Bullseye the
whatever you
Clown.
want to share.
All right, my name is Bullseye the Clown. I wasn't always a clown. Actually, I was a theater major in college, and then I went off and did stand-up comedy for about 10 years. And doing the stand-up comedy, I wasn't really being spiritually fulfilled doing stand-up comedy. To me, there has to be something more to life than just entertaining a bunch of drunk people. So I kind of left doing that, and the whole clowning thing kind of actually started by accident. My dad passed away in 2018, and he never traveled. And years ago, I saw a movie called Patch Adams with Robin Williams. And I realized that Patch Adams was actually a real person. And for people who don't know who Patch Adams is, he likes to refer to himself. He's a clown who just happens to be a doctor. And so he does clown tours all over the world, taking clowning into places that don't normally get, fun and excitement, and so when my dad passed away and left me with a little bit of money, I decided I was going to go on a trip with Patch Adams. I don't know what was calling me to do that. I don't really have any experience clowning, or I didn't at that time. I had no experience clowning and didn't really know what I was doing. But for some reason, I just kept being led to contact Patch Adams. So I contacted them to find out when their next trip was. This was in 2018. And he decided he said he was going to Russia. And it would be 7 days in Moscow, 7 days in St. Petersburg. I had never really been out of the United States up to that point. So I thought, okay, I guess I'll do this and see what happens. I really didn't know what to expect. And this was just like a 14-day boot camp into clowning. I mean, we were in costume from the time we got on the plane. So he's like, dress up as a clown, even on the plane. And so I'm like flying through the air to Russia in this clown outfit, and then we land. There's 35 other clowns there waiting on us, and we went into like orphanages and hospitals and drug rehab centers, just anywhere that Patch could find that needed humor and that needed some uplifting. And so that's really kind of how it started. I really never expected to do it again. Once I left, I thought, okay, this is going to be like a one and done thing. I'm going to be close to 50 years old. I'm not going to be a clown at 50 years old, And but while we were there, I just saw the transformational power that we had as clowns, where like everywhere we went, I mean, people could be feeling one way. You see like the pain on their face in a hospital, and then the moment we show up, you just see all the pain go away, and you just see how happy and excited they are in those moments when we're there. And so I just figured, once I got home, I'm like, there has to be something that I can do with that here in the United States, where I don't have to fly clear to Russia all the time to do clowning. Yeah. And so then I just kind of found ways to start clowning around here in the United States. So I started a program that went into nursing homes, and I started clowning with folks here in nursing homes here in Arizona. And I still do that, and I still do my clown mission work as well, where we go into other countries. And then I don't know how long of an introduction you want here, but
hey, go for it.
So once we got back, and I have continued to travel with Patch. We've gone to Morocco, and we've gone to Costa Rica and Mexico, and then and everywhere we went, we would take things. We would take like fun toys and stuff that we would play with while we were gone. But we basically were taking like humanity. We were taking fun, joy, smiles. But I guess I felt like we should be leaving something behind. So when we leave, that there is something tangible that we're leaving behind. So that's where my ministry started to happen, where I started a ministry called Clowns on a Mission. And the whole point of this, our first point was we were going to go to Guatemala. We bought backpacks filled with school supplies to hand out to school children who could not afford them. Because in Guatemala, you can't go to school if you can't afford it. Parents either have to figure out, do I feed you today or do I send you to school? And most times schooling just doesn't happen. So that was going to be our mission. So we had all these backpacks packed in our suitcases, we flew over there. We had the school supplies. We packed all the school supplies into the bags. And then when we were there, when one of the people on our mission said, a lot of these people don't have food. And I was like, well, that's not our mission. Our mission is to take the backpacks. I was like really laser focused on these backpacks. I was like, that's what we're doing. We're here to do backpacks. And so then it was just, and then they said, well, we could buy 200 pounds of food for $50. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay. Wow. So then we just started to make a pivot. The whole thing was, I was called to do a ministry, and although it was planned to be one thing, in the middle of it, it kind of changed to something else. And I'm like, you know what, that's what's needed here. So whatever's needed here is what we're going to do. So we made the pivot. We still give out the backpacks to the children who needed them, but in each backpack, then we added a pound of rice and a pound of corn. So we went out and we bought, and then everywhere we went, we also gave out juice boxes and cookies so that they could eat immediately right while we were doing an event. And so we just kind of made a pivot, and so that's kind of now where the mission is. We're planning to go back to Guatemala. This time it's going to be more of a food mission, since we see that that's where the greater need is. But, one of the places we stopped was a nursing home, and a lot of them didn't have shoes. So I did call and say, hey, do they need shoes? And they're like, no. Some of them are just choosing not to wear them. I'm like, oh, okay. But even since we've been gone, we've been sending money back to Guatemala to feed the seniors at the nursing center, because those their only food is basically donations. So if they don't get donations, they don't eat. Wow. And so we wanted to make sure that we're still sending food back to them. And so our mission kind of pivoted from what we originally thought we were going to be doing, but we were happy with how it turned out. And of course, it wasn't without its issues. Everybody thinks, well, if you're called to do this, then this is going to be a wonderful thing and things are going to go smooth. And no, we had flat tires and we locked our keys in the car and had to bust out windows. And we, but we made it work, and we were able to feed. We ended up buying 400 pounds of food, and then we fed the children. We gave out the 200 backpacks of school supplies. So, we were really happy with the way our first mission trip went. So like I said, we're planning to do it again. And that's my intro.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, it was a good intro. And it's neat to hear the stories of that and just some of the work you've been able to do. And I've listened to some other podcasts you have been on just to be prepared for our interview today. And there's one I heard in particular, you going to a nursing home to a lady that did not want to laugh when I tell that story.
Yeah, this was actually in Russia on our first. It was actually a hospice. So all of these people were kind of on their deathbed, and Patch Adams had a rule that you go into every single room and you make every single person laugh. And so we got to this hospital, and of course they were like, you can't go into the last room on the left. And so of course my main thing was, well, why can't I go into the last room on the left? What's in the last room on the left? And they're like, no, it's a lady named Helena. She'll get mad at you. She'll throw things. She'll curse at you in Russian. Don't go in there. And I'm like, okay. And so I had gone into every other room and, did my clowning and playing. And then I kind of got to this last room, and I thought, I've got to go into this room. One, Patch told us to hit every room, and something's just calling me, that's why we're here. And even though I don't really know what I'm going to do once I get in the room, because this was my first time actually clowning in a different country, and I didn't speak their language. That was another issue, was that I didn't speak any Russian.
Oh, no.
So I thought, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? She's on her deathbed, so if she throws something, surely I can duck. It can't be that hard, So, so I opened up the door, and I had bubbles with me, so I just started blowing bubbles into the room. And so as I'm blowing the bubbles into the room, I slowly keep walking in, and I see her. She's actually looking out the window, so her head is not facing me. And so I just kept slowly creeping in and blowing bubbles. And finally, a bubble kind of like wafts across her face, and she turns and she looks, and I was ready. And at this time, I don't look like I do today, but I didn't really know how to dress up. So I had these giant moose antlers on my head and this big giant red nose. And I can't imagine what she thought when she turned and looked at me. And she stopped and looked, and I looked at her, and I was about ready to turn and run, and then she kind of patted for the bed for me to sit down on the bed. And so I went over to the bed and I sat down, and I was trying to show her how to blow bubbles. Like I said, I couldn't really converse with her because I didn't know. I only knew her name, which was Helena. So I tried to use that as much as possible, and trying to show her how to blow bubbles. So I'm like, just blow the bubble. And so she tried to blow, and maybe like one little bubble came out. And I'm like, oh no, you got to do more. We need more bubbles. And so let's try this again. Let's blow a little harder. And so I gave it to her, and she like blew a little harder. Maybe like two little bubbles came out. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You got to just really fill up your lungs with air and blow really, really hard. And she blew really, really hard. And there were bubbles everywhere. But she blew her teeth clear across the room. So, so I had to go looking for her teeth. And she started laughing very loud. And I'm like, shh, be quiet. I'm not supposed to be in here. I'm going to get in trouble. And she's laughing. And I finally find her teeth, and I'm holding up her teeth. Look, I found your teeth. And about that time, that's when the doctor walked into the room and was like, what are you doing in here? I told you not to come in here. And then he took a look at her and he was like, I have never heard her laugh. And so she had been there for quite some time, and she was on her deathbed. And that's the first he had ever heard her laugh, because she never received visitors. And so, I don't know how much longer she lasted after we left, but my thought was, when I left that room, to me, the entire clown trip was a success for me because of that, just that one story. If nothing else had happened on that trip, hey, I made this woman laugh her last few days on Earth. So,
Wow.
even though I couldn't really communicate with her, God showed me what to do, I guess, because I had no idea what what I was doing.
Yeah. Wow. Just the power of laughter. It's good like a medicine, as scripture tells us. It's good for us, and that's awesome that you're able to do that for someone. We don't know how long she lived after that story, but just that impression you left on her I'm sure it meant a lot to her.
Absolutely. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew I had to have you share that story after I heard it. I'm like, you gotta share the teeth flying across the room. But not only do you do humanitarian work, you also do presentations for anti-bullying. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, and I never wanted to be like a poster child for bullying, but I was bullied as a kid, and honestly, it really wasn't until I became an adult and I actually went to Russia. I kind of realized some things, but so I was bullied as a kid in high school. Kids would push me into lockers and call me names and things like that. And I also grew up with an alcoholic stepfather. And so he was very abusive. And so I was harboring a lot of that going before I went to Russia. So I was kind of harboring all that. And then my real dad had passed away just right before going to Russia. So I really had a lot of angst and anger going into Russia. And so what I realized when I was there and we were doing all of the clown work that we were doing, and Patch Adams, be happy for 24 hours a day, happy, 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 happy. And what I realized is you can't be happy and sad, or happy and mad, or happy and upset at the same time. So while we were focused for 14 straight days on being happy, when I came home, I realized that all those feelings that I had about being bullied and being abused, and the death of my father and the grief that I was going through, I realized that for me, all of that stuff was gone. That by doing nice things for other people, I in turn was then able to kind of reconcile the whole bullying situation. And so it was then that I really decided I was going to start talking about that, because I guess I was more at peace with the whole bullying issue. And originally, it wasn't even for talking to children. It really was going to be, I was fascinated by the fact that when certain adults were bullied as children, they withdraw from society. They don't live up to what they had hoped they would live up to. They take jobs that are really beneath their qualifications because they don't want to go for the high paying jobs because of what people might say about them or what competition they might have. And then yet you have some other people who are bullied, like Lady Gaga, Susan Boyle, and Jackie Chan. All these people were bullied when they were younger, and they became these mega superstars. So I thought, how do you reach like the ones who didn't become the superstars and didn't have the successful careers and are still wallowing in all the anger and all the angst? And so when I started writing my book, I really just kind of started from the idea was I was going to do my presentation for adults only, so trying to find adults, um, and deliver it to them. And then it just kind of morphed into, well, if I had had some of these messages as children, then maybe I wouldn't have carried my anger as long as I did. So then I just started talking to some other children and kind of getting, how do you combat bullying? And, and they actually came up with some fun and interesting ways. And I had some fun and interesting ways on how I combated it for whenever I was little. I mean, the experts probably say that, what I'm telling people is not right. But, the way I look at it is, what, I was bullied and you weren't. So who's the better spokesperson here? I was bullying and lived. I was bullying and bullied and lived through it. So, so these are how I survived. So I kind of just did a small book. It was meant to be very small, and it was just meant to be like a little handbook for hey, you're in this situation, you're online, and somebody's bullying you. What do you do? That kind of thing.
Awesome, man. I know you mentioned it quite a bit in that story there, but tell us a little bit more about your book and what's inside of it, and how can even people access the book?
Well, the book is available online. It's on Amazon.com. It's called Bullseye on Bullying, Your Blueprint to Beating the Bullies. And you can get it in paperback, or you can get it just on Kindle. So if you are one of those people who need that immediate gratification and have to have it right now, you can get the Kindle version, and it can be delivered right to your phone or your computer ASAP. And again, what's in it is really tips for anybody who's been bullied or is currently being bullied, and how they can navigate around that. I was never a big proponent of some of the things that the psychologists tell us to do. Tell somebody you're being bullied, and although I think that's a great idea to tell somebody, I also don't think that that's the be all end all, and that's gonna be the answer for everybody. Because what ends up happening a lot of times when you tell somebody that you're being bullied, one, if they don't take that information any further, you tell them and they're like, oh, okay, well, we're sorry to hear that. And they don't take it any further up the chain, whether it's to the principal or contacting the person who's bullying you's parents or whatever, then nothing is going to happen. It's just going to kind of stop right there. On the same token, you tell somebody you're being bullied and the bully finds out that you told on them, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So the whole point of my book was kind of, how do you navigate around that? How do you navigate the bully in ways that you can get away from the bully? My whole thing was just how do I get away from the bully? I would reroute my day. I would replan my day. If the bullies always picked on me at a certain particular point, always at my locker after third period, well, then I wouldn't go to my locker after third period. I would take whatever I needed with me so that I didn't have to stop then, and I would stop at a different time. And I would just kind of reroute my day and reroute my path, trying to avoid them. Bullies are kind of chickens in the fact that they don't want to deal with more than one person at a time. So if you travel with 2 or 3 people, if you're traveling like in a small little pack, they're less likely to bully you. So I kind of found that out. And then if bullies think you're nuts, a lot of times they'll leave you alone. So a lot of times what I would do is I would create distractions. I would scream fire and run around in a circle, and I'd like roll on the floor like I was sick, or I'd play dead. I mean, I would just do all kinds of crazy things. And, finally the teacher would come out and go, what on earth is going on? And by that point, the bully had run away, So I was great at creating distractions. And so I guess it's probably fitting that I'm a clown now, because I was kind of like the class clown back then. So people are probably like, that guy, it's nuts. Yeah. Don't even mess with that kid, So it's kind of chock full of that. But I even talk about other things. I even go into, there's a whole chapter on what to look for if you're putting your parents in a nursing home, because believe it or not, people get bullied and abused in nursing homes as well. And so I have a chapter on that. And it was really interesting because I was actually doing a bullying seminar in a nursing home, and one of the ladies had she got my book, and she got my book on the day that she was moving out of that community. She was moving out of that community because she was being bullied by some of the other people. And I think this was during COVID. So I don't think she had her COVID shot and they were bullying her because she didn't have her COVID shot and she was going to get everybody sick and whatever it happened to be. And then I got a letter about a month later. She decided to move back into the community after reading my book because she realized, you know what, listen, it's not my fault that they're bullying me. And so she wanted to take control of her own life and she really liked that community. And so she moved back in based on really the book. And so I was like, well, you know, a success story. There's a success story.
Awesome. But that is so true. It's bullying isn't just for kids. That's what we mainly see it as. And as you mentioned there, when you think of bullying, it's school, pushing you in the locker, telling you to meet me at the playground, at the swing at such and such time. But it's with adults too. And with our current age that we live in, social media plays a big role in that. What are some tips and things you can give for our listeners that are, whether it's social media or like online chat groups or anything like that? What's your tips for those adults, young adults that deal with that in those environments?
Well, there are certain platforms that I refuse to go on. I mean, I've been on them. I probably shouldn't say them because I don't want to get sued, but but it used to be called Twitter.
I wonder what that is.
So I was on that. To me, I think that's the worst actual social media platform for bullying, actually. It's not moderated or modified in any ways. So as far as like Facebook and Instagram, both of those go, what I like about especially Facebook is that you can, if somebody friend requests you, you have the right to deny the friend request. And usually, you know, I probably should have 5,000 friends by now on my page, but the first thing I do is when somebody friend requests me, I go and I look at their page and I'll scroll. And if all I see are, you know, tirades and rants and they're upset about this and they're calling people names, I refuse the request. I look at every single thing. So that's the one thing I would suggest for any adult or any child who is going to be on social media is, you know, we're not put on this earth necessarily to be friends with every single person. We don't have to be friends with everyone, and not everybody needs to be our friend. And some people just want to be on your page to nose and see what you're doing. And so I'm very selective with who I will, you know, I delete friend requests every single day that I don't do. Instagram, I've never had a problem. I've never been bullied on Instagram yet. You know, maybe it's because I don't have like a big following there either. Because again, I'm very selective with who I say yes to or whatever. But yeah, that has never been a problem. But like I said, Twitter was always like the issue. I don't do a whole lot of TikTok videos, which I know I probably should start doing some. But just really watching who you're friending and who's wanting to friend you. And I find it really interesting because I get some of the people who bullied me in school who now want to be my Facebook friend. And I'm like, well, why do you want to do that? You know? So yeah, I'm very selective. Now, in the event that you are bullied online, I always do what I call like the sandwich or the Oreo effect. You know, so say somebody says a nasty comment online to me. I'll start off by giving them like a nice comment. Well, thank you so much for responding to my message. You know, and then I'll kind of give them like and then I'll kind of like completely misguided, you know, so I'll give them like the meat of what I really want to tell them. And then I'll say, but we hope to see you again on our page soon, you know, something like, so I kind of will give like I'll try to find two compliments to say it, and then I'll kind of let them have it in the middle. And so, and then after that, I don't engage. So it's like if they come back with something else nasty, I just will not engage. I delete and block. So that you do have those options at your disposal. I just don't see the need to get into it online. And then also, I think I always get kind of the one trend that I get upset by is like the hot or not stuff. Have you ever seen that stuff? Like where like a little boy or a little girl
I probably
will
have.
post like, am I hot or not? And they'll have like a picture of them, or, and I'm thinking, okay,
Yeah.
by the time you're asking somebody if you're pretty or not, you're going to not get everybody to agree with you. So right then you're already putting yourself into a situation. So I would say when you're making posts, and don't make posts that are going to put you into some kind of a situation where you're going to get yourself negative comments, unless that's what you're going for. But most people are not going for that.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, it's just killing people with
Mhm.
kindness, showing them the opposite of what they're wanting you to respond with. They just want to make you look bad to where they're like, oh, he's the bully. He's the one that's putting all this on me. It's like, but
But yeah, what
just be, like you said, be careful. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, one little girl, whenever I was working on the book, she had responded and she said she agrees with everything the bully tells her, and then it frustrates them. So, like, the bully might say, that dress looks terrible that you're wearing. And she go, I know this dress is awful. I told my mom when she bought it that she shouldn't buy me this dress because this dress looks terrible. And then they'll say, your hair looks like it hasn't been washed in a month. I know it. Really haven't washed my hair. And she started agreeing with every single thing that the bully said. And then they just got frustrated with her because they couldn't upset her. And so they just, never mind. And they just walked away and left her alone. Yeah. So I kind of included that in the book because maybe that's a tactic that might work for you. Just agree with everything, and they'll get frustrated. My mom's kind of the same way. If I don't fight with her when she wants to fight, then she gets mad and just walks away. So.
Man, that's so true. It's just catch them off guard.
Yeah,
just show them kindness.
That's all you can
do. Yeah, absolutely. So, we usually plug this at the end of the podcast, but how can people connect with you and even book you to do like a bullying seminar or something like that?
I have two websites. I actually have bullseyetheclown.com, and then I also have clownsonamission.com. Clownsonamission.com is basically for the clown missions and us raising the money for that. But actually on the bullseyetheclown.com, you can actually book the speaking engagements on there. You can also order the book right off of that website as well.
Awesome. And we'll have all those links down in the show notes below, so you can check those out. And definitely check out the book. I'm going to have to check out the book myself, too. It sounds good, and practical tips for bullying. And it's, like you said, it's not just for kids, it's for adults, too. So,
like I said,
awesome.
I'm working on either... there are some things that I didn't include in the book, so I'm either going to do an amended version, or I'm actually just going to write another whole book and add all the other stuff in that I didn't put into this book. So I'm actually still working on another one as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So be on the lookout for that as well. So that's cool. What are some stories that you've mentioned a few already, but what are some other stories that stick out from your ministry work, whether it was the humanitarian side of things or just helping someone who just was in a situation where they were being bullied?
Like I said, a lot of time I notice this a lot, even like I said, in the nursing homes that I work in. And so a lot of times when I'm there playing, you'll still even get people who will get, if you hand somebody something, you better make sure you have enough to hand to everybody, because you'll get people who want to, steal it from somebody else, or you take it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how old they are. They can be older people. So there are times, like I said, you just have to kind of, I stand up for people when I'm there. That's not appropriate behavior. I'll say something to that effect, and and I try to joke around with them, but I try to get the point across that, hey, this is something that, and that's something I learned early on when I worked with Patch was, in orphanages, don't give to one kid if you can't give to all the kids, because you're going to have a bully there that's going to take it. So if you're going to give it to a child, then what you do is you take them to the side, and you might sit with them and then hand it to them personally and let them put it in their pocket where nobody else sees it and things like that. Believe it or not, like I said, a lot of times when I'm doing the ministry work, I don't see a whole lot of bullying, which is good. That's not to say that it doesn't exist, but a lot of times, usually it's between the two kids. And and we're able to kind of, hey, chill out, and, we stand them aside with each other, and maybe get another clown to kind of entertain the bully while you're trying to do what you're trying to accomplish. So, but we don't really encounter that a whole lot, which is, and it could be because a lot of times I do a lot of the clowning in other countries too, and so it's just different to see the different dynamics in different countries and how they operate. We've even gone into prisons. We went into a couple Mexican prisons, so that was interesting.
I can only imagine.
Well, we went into two. One prison was for women with children. It was women were allowed to have their children up until the time the children were 6 years old, and then at that time, the children either had to go live with family members or the children were put into like their foster care or orphanages or something to that effect.
Wow. The
other one we went to was for a group of male offenders who were between the ages of like 17 and 25. Now that one was tough, because they were like they were too cool to play with a bunch of clowns. So we kind of got to the point, like I was like talking to the prison guard. I said, tell them if they don't play with us, we're going to be here for the next 8 hours. And so he told them, and so they all like, okay. So they all started playing with us just so that we would leave,
That's awesome. And just, again, brightening someone's day, just a smile goes a long way. A laugh goes a long way. And that's awesome that you're calling to do that. So keep it up there. And we're excited to see what's in store for your clown ministry there. Are you a thrill seeker looking for the perfect place to rest your head after a day filled with excitement? Look no further than Lodge Lovers, the trusted and recommended lodging provider of Rive Your Life Ministries. Whether you're planning for your next coaster trip, vacation getaway, or adventurous expedition, Lodge Lovers has you covered. With a wide range of rental prices to suit every budget, you can find the perfect accommodation for your needs. As a faith-based company, Lodge Lovers is committed to providing comfortable and welcoming lodging for all sorts of trips and adventures. Plus, when you book with Lodge Lovers, you're not just booking a place to stay, you're making a difference. That's right, Lodge Lovers is proud to donate 2.5% of all bookings to help Ride of Your Life Ministries. And you can rest easy knowing your stay is not just enriching your experience, but also contributing to a great cause of reaching those who need the gospel of Jesus Christ. For your next unforgettable adventure, choose Lodge Lovers. Book now and experience the perfect blend of comfort, convenience, and compassion. Visit our website, riveyourlifeministries.com, to learn more and to reserve your stay today with Lodge Lovers. Something you did mention to me too while we were setting up this interview is you worked at this little park called Cedar Point.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about your time there?
Yes, so that was way back, and I want to say it was 1989. I was a senior in high school, and that was my summer job going into my first year of college, and then I also went back the following year. So way back in 1989, I was a games host. So I was one of those annoying people who was hollering for you to come over and play the game, and and I would even come up with like little ditties for people to play my game. Like, let me see if I can remember. One of them was like, "Hi ho, hi ho. It's these 3 darts you throw, so pay some bread and hit the red hi-ho." So I would just stand on the midway and start singing that song and point to my game,
Yeah.
So that's kind of so that's kind of was the job that I had. The first year I was a games host, and then the second year I was manager of the game section. And I was manager of the game section out in Frontierland. They had like a little section of games out in Frontierland. And I was the manager out there. But I was still hopping the games and for people when they went on break and all that fun stuff. So
cool. What's a memorable moment you had at the park, whether it was with your coworkers or at the games themselves?
Well, actually, one of the things I loved, in which some people may or may not know, is like at night when the park closes, they open a ride, and all of the staff can go ride that ride as many times as they want for like 2 or 3 hours after the park closes. So there might be that year the big ride was the Magnum. That was what was the new roller coaster that year? The Magnum XL. Was it 200, 300, 3000, whatever? I forget the number.
2000. Yeah, one of those.
I was like, there was a number associated with it. I don't remember what. And so there was Magnum Night. So that was it. And I was in line like 6 times. I would stand there, and we would get close, and then I would decide I don't think I want to ride this. So then I go back, and my friends were like, no. So then I get in line again, and then I would I'm like, I just don't know if I want to ride this thing. This thing just looks so tall and so scary. So it took me about 6 times, and I finally got them to talk me into getting on the Magnum and actually going. And I mean, once we got on there, it wasn't as bad as it seemed, or as bad as it looked. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, I found the worst part of that whole ride was the tail end of it. So you go down that big hill and you go around these loops, and then there's like there's little hills at the very end, and I'm like, and of course we always had to wear our ID, and we wore our IDs around our neck, and so the IDs would go flying up. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying, and I'm trying to like hold on for like dear life, but I'm trying to reach this ID and pull this ID back in. And so that was probably one of the, for me, that ride was always scary. And believe it or not, I don't even know why. The little mine ride, I always found that ride to be so scary because they just have the little lap bar, and I always felt like I was going to fall out of it. Especially at the end when you go around there's like a little thing right at the end where you go around in a circle. And I just felt like I would slide in that coaster, and I always felt like we were going to fall out of that. I chose not to ride that one a whole lot because I didn't like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Magnum. My wife and I went this past weekend, and man, that was a one and done for us. That one beat us up. That's one where it's like, well, we rode it. We got the coaster credit for it. So
I want to say the other one. I think one year was Magnum, and I think the next year the big one was the Mean Streak. Is that still there? Yeah, that one I thought like shook the heck out of you. It was it's like if you got the devil and you ride that sucker, because that'll shake the devil right out of you.
Yes.
It's like
man. What is your favorite coaster there? Whether it's there or not, what was your favorite coaster?
My favorite one, and actually is not there anymore, and I don't know if you ever got there when this was there. It was a really short ride. It was called the Demon Drop. Did you ever hear of that?
Oh, yes. It's actually at one of its sister parks now. So
okay.
I'm actually getting to ride that here in a few months.
Yeah,
so.
I like that. So for anybody who doesn't know what the Demon Drop is, it basically you're harnessed in, kind of like you are on, I would say, the Iron Dragon. The harness is kind of over the top, and your legs are kind of dangling free, and you go straight up, and then it just moves you out, and then it just drops you, and then when you get to the bottom, it kind of flips you on your back, and then kind of rolls you into the gate. But that was always one of my favorite ones. I would tend to go on that on my days off because it was usually right by a whole section of little games over there. And usually it was such a short, even though it was a long line, it went very fast because the ride was so short. I mean, it might fit about 10 or 12 people in one coaster, but the ride was like 30 seconds. I mean, it wasn't a very long ride at all.
Wow.
The worst part was, they would never, you'd try to count. They would take you to the top, and then they would get you like right on the ledge. And then, you might be standing in line and counting, 1, 2, 3, drop. So then you're sitting in there, you're waiting 1, 2, 3, and then they don't drop you, and you're like, wait a minute. So
the suspense is killing me.
They always change how long they wait to drop you. But that was always one of my favorites. I loved that ride. And then they had one that used to be called Thunder Can. Was it called? No, not Thunder Can. There was one that was right over by the Midway, and it used to be like a log ride, but it was Avalanche Run, maybe is what they called it. And then they closed it in, and they closed it in the year that I was there, later in the year, and then they changed the name to Disaster Transport. And I don't know if it's still that. Is that still there? It was kind of right by the spiral.
No, it's replaced by. Yeah, so it's replaced by a new entrance with a coaster. It's like a wing coaster. It's called Gatekeeper.
Okay.
So where Disaster Transport was is where this is now.
Is it kind of the same thing? You walk into like a little warehouse it's kind of air conditioned on the inside when you're waiting for the ride, and it's kind of indoor. Or is it not indoor anymore?
It's not indoors anymore. It's like an open, like a queue that goes up the tower there and does the loading bay. But they've also used the area as a new boardwalk. So it's like that Coney Island,
Okay.
the original Cedar Point feel to it. So it's all brand new.
Yeah, I remember. Like,
I've heard stories about that.
well, when it was Avalanche Run, it was kind of like a log ride without the water. Because it was kind of like in this little tube, and you kind of got like on a little bobsled or whatever. And so I tried to get my mom to ride.
Alpine type.
Yeah. So I tried to get my mom to ride. I said, Mom, it's just like going on the log rides, but it just doesn't have water. And so then it happened to be, I finally talked her into it the year that it was Disaster Transport. And when you went on that, it was in the dark. It was almost like if you go to Disney and you're doing like, Magic Mountain or whatever. So it was in the dark, but then there were things like you could see, like, you might see like laser lights and spaceships and all kinds of things in there. And so my mom gets on that with me, and as soon as she gets on there, and then the thing goes click, 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 and then it goes black inside. I hate you. Why'd you give me? I said, well, just open your eyes and look at the stuff, because once you get moving, it doesn't feel like you're going as fast. No, I'm not going to open my eyes. And she would not open her eyes. We're like, Mom, open your eyes. It's not. No, I hate you. I'm never going on another ride with you. So she like held her breath. I thought she was going to die on this thing, because she was finally got to the point where she just held her breath until it was over. And I'm like, Mom, open your eyes.
That's funny. Man, Cedar Point is such a fun park. It's
it's funny. I just looked on because I looked online today because I thought, well, since I'm going to be talking about having worked there, I was like looking at all the names of these coasters, and I'm like, I don't know any of these things. So they've actually added a lot since I've been there in 1989 and 1990.
Did they have the? I'm pretty sure they did, but was Mantis there still?
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
The stand-up one?
No.
Okay, that must have been 90s. But yeah, they've got quite a few coasters there, and actually today, I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but today they signed an agreement to where Six Flags owns Cedar Point now.
Oh wow!
So they have a merger between Cedar Fair and now Six Flags. So it's going to be interesting. Got this big coaster capital of the world, they say, and Six Flags. So none of us saw that coming.
Well, now do they also own? Well, they own Kings Island now, right?
They do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
that's our home park down here.
Okay, yeah, because I know we always had a day where like a lot of the workers, like on one of our days off, we would actually all drive over to like Kings Island, and we would spend like a day at Kings Island, and we would let people know that we worked at Cedar Point, and they would give us like discounts on stuff, and then they would do the same,
That's nice.
So yeah, of course I haven't been to either one of those parks since I stopped working there, and that was like 1990.
Wow.
I need to get back to Ohio and go back to.
Well, come on back out.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you out here.
It'd be fun. I should go my clown costume. I wonder if they'd let me in.
Hey, who knows? We actually used to have a mine at the park, so it wouldn't be too out of the blue there.
No, there you go.
So.
I'll just walk in, and I might have to take my clown shoes off to get on some of the rides, but.
Yeah, actually, they used to have a clown band at the park back in the 70s and 80s. They had a clown band that would walk the park and just do like little shows here and there. So
how funny!
Someone might think you might be a part of that. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe I'll just stand there and do some balloon animals on the midway.
There you go. What are some of your memories from your trips to Kings Island with your Cedar Point crew?
I'm trying to think of what the name of the Beast was there that year, and then there was another one.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that's similar to Iron Dragon. What is that called? It's something.
It was Top Gun back in the day.
Okay, so yeah.
But now it's like a reincarnation of the bat.
Oh, okay. So no, so that I remember the bat too, but writing those, definitely remember. And then did they also start adding like some superhero characters now, like that walk around?
They had like Star Trek and all that back in the day.
Yeah, because I wanted to say like the time that we went, I wanted to say like there were some superheroes that maybe Marvel superheroes or even DC characters that were walking around. I thought I remembered that, but no, I'm having to
It's funny you mentioned that. I think we might be getting some DC characters here soon with that merger from Six Flags, so we might actually be having some of those characters.
Well, there you go. See, I'm giving you a forecast.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a forecast of things to come.
Yes.
Yeah, Kings Island.
Cool.
I remember liking Cedar Point better than Kings Island. Not that there's nothing wrong with Kings Island. It just seemed like Cedar Point had a lot more rides than Kings Island did. At least a lot more adult-oriented rides. And one of them had, well, I think Cedar Point has Thunder Canyon. Did they still have that? Where you're in the big raft and then the waterfall comes down over you? It was back toward the frontier land.
I think so. The only one that comes to mind, my wife and I don't do water rides, but the only one I can think of is Snake River Falls. That's the only one that comes to mind.
Okay, that sounds like there. That sounds like it might be. Are you in a raft? Are the people in a raft? Like looks like a big round.
I think it's a log.
Okay, so then they might have gotten rid of it. It's because this was.
I'm sure they have it somewhere, but
yeah, because this was like a huge raft, and it probably sat about maybe 15, 20 people in one raft. And it was round, and like I said, you would just kind of go down the river or whatever it was in there, and then it would kind of slowly go around, and then you'd actually go right underneath waterfalls, and of course it would rotate you as it went under the waterfall so that it hit like half the raft, and you thought, oh great, it didn't get me, and then you go like right around the corner, and it would rotate again, and it would get everybody else.
Joke's on you.
Yeah, so
awesome.
So on really hot nights in the summer, we would have like a Thunder Canyon nights. It's like just make sure you don't wear your shoes on that because everything pretty much is wet. Take your wallet out and all your keys, all that kind of stuff, because it gets soaked.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they still have it, but it just does not ring a bell when I think of the park. Like I said, we're not water ride people, so we're usually for the thrills. Like you said, not Six Flags, well, it kind of is now, but Cedar Point is known for their like state-of-the-art, top-notch coasters and all.
I think I read that they have 17 now. I think 17 coasters or around that.
They do.
Yeah, actually, I should come back. Like that, I had because I don't even know if I'd be brave enough to ride a coaster now. I have not ridden a coaster since 1990.
Oh wow!
So like my whole adult life, pretty much, I have not really ridden a coaster. So I don't know. I had to work my way up. I'd probably have to go back and start with the mine ride again, and to work my way up. We had the mean streak, the blue streak, Gemini. I always liked the Gemini. That was a good one. Probably the one I rode the most is probably the Gemini. Blue Streak, I was not a huge fan of, just because again that was another one I always felt like I was going to fall out of toward the end with the small little hills, believe it or not. But actually, there was an employee dorm that you could stay in. You could live in there while you were working there, and it was like right close to where the Blue Streak was, because we would hear that all night long until the park closed, people screaming on the Blue Streak. So, yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, Blue Streak is definitely showing its age.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, Gemini probably too, because Gemini is probably pretty old too. And I don't really know how you go through there. And
Gemini was one of the last ones.
It was one of the last one. What?
Good. Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of the last rides we rode, and it wasn't too bad compared to Blue Streak, but it was still like, oh man, this needs a little elbow grease to get it smoother.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes I find wooden coasters are a little more. It's not that they're rickety, but they tend to shake you a lot more than what like the iron coasters do. So I like the wooden coasters less than I like the newer, smoother coasters.
Yeah, and they have a iron or a steel wood combo now called it's an RMC, which is like a rebuild of some of those older rides, and they have one called Steel Vengeance. It slipped my mind for a second, but that's one of their best rides at the park now. It's one of those wood metal hybrids.
Oh wow!
And it's so much fun. And I forget which ride it replaced, but it's a modern version of it. So
yeah, I'll have to go there again. Like I said, I haven't been there in so long that all of the stuff is new. Like I said, I know like some of the newer ones that were there when we were there was like the Magnum was brand new. Fairly new was the Iron Dragon, which everybody said, "Oh, that's the lame one. You don't want to go on the Iron Dragon. That one's lame." So, because they didn't find that very scary, I guess. I mean, it was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed the Iron Dragon. It didn't bother me. Oh, I always liked the little. What was it called? I want to say that back then it was called like the Cat and the Mouse. It was or like the Mouse Trap or something like that.
Oh, the Wild Mouse.
Wild Mouse. Yeah. That one was fun. I mean, it was fast, but like just like for a little coaster. Corkscrew. I remember
they actually introduced a modern version of it.
Oh,
yep. Corkscrew. Oh goodness! So I didn't know what I was getting myself into with Corkscrew, and as you said, it knocks the devil out of you. I felt like it knocked the wind out of me there. It's like, oh my goodness! It's like that is a one and done. I don't know if I could ride coasters for the rest of the day after that. But,
yeah, that one's a rough one.
Corkscrew.
Yeah, it's not bad until you go up around, until you do the corkscrew part, because that's what really shakes you. Yeah. Like I said, the things that kills me is you wait in line for so long for like a 20-second ride. I mean, because that one seemed, if I remember right, that one's very, very short.
It is very short. I'm pretty sure it's 30 seconds or less or something like that.
It wasn't very long.
It's like, I just wasted 30 seconds.
Wasted 30 seconds of my life, and now I can't do another coaster the rest of the day.
Yes. Oh, good stuff. But yeah, if you're back in the area, let us know. We'd love to catch up with you out here.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, because I have not gone to. I want to get to Dollywood one of these days. That's another place I would like to go. I was there.
That's a must.
Yeah, I was there years ago when it was called Silver Dollar City. That was way before Dolly took it over.
Yeah. Yeah, we love Dollywood. It's such a good park. The food's amazing too, on top of all the attractions. But it's one of the best parks. That's honestly my favorite park out there.
Yeah, so that's one I've never been to. Like I said, I've been to Kings Island, been to Cedar Point, been to Universal Studios out here, been to Disney.
Yeah.
Never been to a Six Flags. We actually have a little place out here in Arizona that I have not gone to. It's in Phoenix. It's called Castles and Coasters. It's just got a few. I mean, it's very, very tiny. Okay. It's very, very small. I have not been there. I'd like to go to Lego. They have like a Lego land out in California, which isn't too far from where I am.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. We'd love to make our way out to the West Coast. I've never been out there. And just some of those parks, like you said, the Disneyland, the Universal and all that, just seem awesome out there.
Yeah. Like I said, nothing as good as Cedar Point, probably. I mean, that probably is especially as far as coasters go, that's probably still is the best one for coasters.
Yeah. But
oh no! I remember years ago, my parents used to take me to Storybook Forest and Idlewild Park. Is that still there?
I've heard about that.
That's like in Pennsylvania.
I don't know if it's there or not.
Kind of like
Dutch Wonderland, maybe?
Yeah, I forget what the name of the...
Or somewhere around there?
Yeah, it's called Idlewild Park and Legionnaire. I'm going to say like Legionnaire, Pennsylvania or somewhere like that. And it's kind of fun. You Storybook Forest, you just kind of walk around. There's really no rides there, but they would have people dressed up like Mother Goose and Snow White and all those things like that.
That's cool.
And then Idlewild
Yeah,
Park had like different little rides, like they had like little coasters and things like that.
that's neat. Yeah, I know Pennsylvania is one of the few states out there that has like a lot of parks. I think I heard there's at least 15
Oh wow!
out in Pennsylvania. So they're pretty big on their attractions too. So it's cool you got to go there.
Now, you seem kind of young from what I'm. You're talking about Cedar Point back in the 70s and 80s, and I'm like, were you even around in the 70s and 80s?
No. Obviously, it was not even thought of back then. But yeah, we here at Ride of Your Life, we're coaster enthusiasts. But on top of that, we're Christians. But we love our coasters and history of coasters and stuff like that. So when you mention coasters, like, oh, I've heard of that. May or may not have ridden it, but we love our coasters. So
Yeah, I did.
especially Cedar Point, we just love the rich history of there.
And you're probably not real far from there. I remember when I worked at Cedar Point, you also could take a ferry. You could take a ferry over to Canada. So we would do that fairly frequently on our days off. I don't know if they still have that available there or not, but we could actually just go.
Sure.
Put in Bay. Does that ring a bell? That's up by there.
Yeah.
And so you could get on the little ferry boat, and it would actually take you in. It was like the tomato capital of Canada. It was Leamington or Leamington, however you say it. So like they had this giant like tomato in the middle of town, and they would have ketchup everywhere. It was just, I don't even know if they still do that or not. If they still have that giant tomato in the middle of the town. But I definitely remember that was one of the places that it would drop us off.
I need to look that up now. That sounds very intriguing. Big tomato and ketchup.
Yeah. So look up. That's like Leamington. It's like Leamington, Leamington, Canada.
Huh.
Something like that. And yeah, but that's kind of what we would do on our days off. If we weren't out in the park, hopping around right on rides, then we were going to Canada or taking the bus to the mall, the Sandusky Mall.
Yeah. Nice.
They probably make you pay for parking now in Cedar Point, I'm assuming.
They do, but we actually have the Gold Pass. So for all of Cedar Fair, you can get an add-on to where you can go to all the parks, and it covers parking as well. So thankfully, that's covered on our end, but they do have an ungodly price for a parking spot.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, because my mom and I were just talking about that today. I said, how much was it to get into Cedar Point back whenever I was working there? And she said, I think it was $19.99 a day to get into Cedar Point.
Oh, to have those prices again.
Right.
It's like $40 if you don't have a pass. It's like, goodness gracious.
Oh, and it's amazing. You were asking something I remember from working there. Since I was a games host, of course, we have to have some kind of money every morning, and we turn our money in every night. And they had a place that they're called Cash Control. That's where you would go get your cash. So you'd walk into this little building, and you'd have workers behind glass, and there were just stacks and stacks and stacks of money, and they're all back there counting the money and putting the money in wraps. And I mean, we're like, holy moly! Yeah, so they're giving us like our little $100 to get the day started or whatever. I'm like, of course we'd have to sit there and we'd have to count it, because if we were short, we were responsible. Mm-hmm. So if it was short, we had to count it, and then we had to take it back to the counter and say, this is $1 short or whatever. Then they would count it again and put it through their machine. And yeah. But I mean, I think back then even the park was taking in well over like $1 million a day. I mean, it was amazing.
I'd imagine so. Man. Well, it's been fun having you on here, Bullseye. And again, one last question for you today. What is one bit of advice you could give listeners, whether it's for stopping bullying, just the power of laughter? What's one bit of advice you would give listeners today?
One of the things I always tell people is, if you want to better your life, the easiest way to make your life better is to do nice things for other people. It it doesn't matter what it is, and doing it without an expectation in return. I think that a lot of times we will give something to somebody or we'll do something for somebody, and then we get upset with the fact that maybe they don't thank us, or they don't give us the expectation that we put an expectation on what it is we're giving. We may not think that we do, but that's what I learned just from starting the whole clowning. The first place we went, it was just kind of like, you know what, we went and we clowned, and we had a great time. And doing good things for other people in turn does good things for you as well. It does things good for your soul. I think that if you're going through anything, if you're depressed in any way, and you just start doing nice things for other people, that's going to lift your own heart.
Yeah. That's some good advice there. Just treat others the way you want to be treated, and just go the extra mile to make someone's day better.
Exactly.
Again,
that's why even though nobody who's listening is seeing me, that's why I'm still dressed as a clown. I still got my makeup on. I still got my costume on, because you see me. Yeah. So it's the whole, I got to have the whole experience for you as well. So.
Yeah. I think I may actually put the video version of this out on our YouTube channel so people can have something to brighten their day as well.
That's right. So, that's right.
Absolutely. Well, we really do appreciate you coming on here today, Bullseye. And one last time, how can folks get connected with you again, whether it's to just see what you're up to, or how they can book you for their next event?
You can find me. I have two websites, bullseyetheclown.com and also clownsonamission.com. If you're an Instagrammer, you can find me on Instagram at Clowns on a Mission Official. Because actually somebody had Clowns on a Mission, and she's not even a clown, so that drives me crazy. So I had to call I was like, what? We mean it's not available? It's Clowns on a Mission. Who else is the clown on the mission? So I go to the YouTube, I go to the Instagram page, and it's like some woman, like, you're not even dressed like a clown. What is the matter with you?
We're not even going to ask questions at this point.
That's right. So I called my Instagram Clowns on a Mission Official. So you can find me on Instagram there. Gotcha. You can find me with, you can type in Clowns on a Mission on Facebook, and you can also type in Bullseye the Clown on Facebook. You can find me both of those places as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bullseye, and we're so excited for what has in store for you in the days ahead. And it's great talking coasters with you as well.
All right. Well, maybe I'll have to come back to Ohio, and we'll have to go to Cedar Point one of these days.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Ride of Your Life podcast. We hope it was a blessing, help, and encouragement to you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and like on your favorite podcast streaming platform. This will get it into the hands of those who need to hear it. You can also view this episode and the rest of Season 4 on YouTube in video format. Stay connected with us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and X. You can visit our website, ROYLVYourLifeMinistries.com, to learn about who we are as a ministry, catch upcoming news, and view our brand new merch shop. Here you'll find brand new pieces of apparel and gifts and so much more. You can also contact us via the ROYL Hotline at 513-285-8319. Here you can text us and stay connected with us. We hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you here next Monday on the ROYL Podcast. God bless.